Okay, thank you so much, Kelsey. Really appreciate being invited to Bayside Community, the Lunch and Learn. I'm Warwick and I work for Opportunity International. And Opportunity works to empower families so they can lift themselves out of poverty. Let me just make sure this is now working. Okay. Uh, 1 in 4 people live on less than $3.20 a day. But for our clients, living in poverty is much more than just a lack of money. Poverty is a lack of real choices. Uh, a lack of choices limits their ability to make decisions and create a pathway out of poverty. And so Opportunity International work with communities in poverty to help and increase their choices and to build that pathway out of poverty. It's estimated that because of COVID, there's 119 million people pushed back into poverty by the end of this year. And to give you an idea of how many is 119 million people, that's all the people in Australia 5 times over. So the need to tackle poverty has never been more urgent than it is right now. Opportunities work, its core work is microfinance. And for those of you who don't know, microfinance is giving women small loans to start and grow businesses. Their businesses are sustainable, and we have about a 98% repayment rate. And we work with local partners, and we do that because those partners understand the culture and they've got long-standing relationships within their communities. And so that builds trust. We work with a number of countries, but India and Indonesia are our main focus. In microfinance, a dollar donated is leveraged 2 up to 4 times. So a donation of $100 is leveraged to maybe $200 or $400, which is then lent out to women. 95% of our clients are women. So there are a few men, but it's primarily women. And we work with women because it appears that for every $1 profit that they make, they spend 80 cents on that, on their children, on their education, on their health, better living conditions. I guess this isn't surprising. I mean, women and mothers everywhere, really focus on children, and it's shown here the way that these women spend their money. The other thing is the reason we work with women is women are just better repayers. Microfinance is a hand up and it's not a handout. It's sustainable. And once the business is started, it generates income that continues. As I mentioned earlier, historically, our repayment rate is 98%. During COVID, of course, that all changed, but it's surprising how resilient people are, and they're repaying and getting back to business. And this repayment rate shows that businesses are profitable, and that profit, that extra income, is helping to lift families out of poverty. The whole cycle is repeated when the loan is repaid, and typically a loan is about 9 months. So every loan, 9 months, another loan goes out. So another woman is given a small loan, she starts or grows her business, that generates that sustainable income, and the children and the community benefit. I'd like to show you a short video about Amina. Let's hope that this works. Wait a second here.
Are you looking to invest in your first
No,
or your next IPO, but you're not sure where to start? Not everybody has the time.
So let me go to this one and click this button, and here we go.
My name is Amina, and my story is one of hope. As a child, I remember the holes in the roof dripping water during the rain and waiting to see if my father, a tricycle driver, would come home with rice for dinner. After harvest time, my parents used to pick up scraps and leftovers just to ensure we could eat. When I was in school, I remember sewing together blank pages from old notebooks. because we couldn't afford school supplies. Our special Christmas lunch was a bowl of porridge. As a family, we had to survive on $4 a day. No matter how hard my family worked, we seemed to be trapped in a cycle of poverty. But then we discovered about the small loans available from Opportunity International Australia. Mom had an idea to start a piggery business, so we took out a loan for $123 from one of Opportunity's microfinance partners. This was enough to buy 3 pigs and begin providing a better future for me and my sister. My university education and my professional career would never have been possible without this opportunity. Opportunity helps families in poverty grow small businesses, earn regular incomes, and improves their access to life-changing healthcare and education. They enable people uncertain of how they will survive to have dreams and a future, like me. But across the world, the COVID-19 pandemic has devastated millions of families in vulnerable communities. Every day, they wake up to poverty, sickness, and hunger. Imagine facing this pandemic in a slum where social distancing is virtually impossible, water is contaminated, and soap is a luxury. Then imagine being locked down, unable to run the business that enables you to feed your family. Schools have been closed, and when they reopen, many children won't be able to come back. They either have to work to put food on the table, or their families simply cannot afford it. Just like with a natural disaster or war, it's what happens in the aftermath that dictates the future. With this pandemic, that time begins now. With a small loan, families can rebuild the businesses that have been devastated by COVID-19. A small loan can help them get back on their feet so they can build a better life for their families. A small loan helped my mother break the cycle of poverty in our family. It enabled us to think about life beyond our next meal, to get an education, to see a path into the future. The dreams I had as a child became reality. I was able to finish school, get a scholarship, and go to an American university. I can pay it forward and create the same opportunities I had for other families in need. Breaking the poverty cycle does so much more than fix a leaky roof. Not only is my parents' house now renovated, but my sister is now a preschool teacher doing a PhD. Without my mom's courage, combined with a small loan, my family's life could have been very different. I am a living proof of what's possible with an opportunity provided by someone like you. And in the aftermath of COVID-19, families in poverty need our help now more than ever. Together, we can make an impact. But there is no we without you. To make a real difference in the world, please partner with us today.
So that's Amina's a story, and it's of course one of the great stories. But there are millions of stories, like Amina. Let me just get back to our presentation. Okay. Here you go. Okay, so I've mentioned that microfinance is our core work, and that's primarily Amina's story, that her mother had a small loan, bought those 3 pigs and started a business through that. So it's providing small loans and financial services, and of course, training people how to run a business and to manage their money. And we established that through local microfinance companies. But we also work in health, training local women to become health leaders. It's a grassroots community-based program, and we work in education, making education accessible through loans. And we work in women's safety, helping communities to detect and eliminate threats of safety, particularly domestic violence and child trafficking. I'd like to tell you a story about Bebi, one of our community health leaders in Bihar in India. Bebi was a child bride, and in 2006, she started a small business by taking out a small microfinance loan, just like Amina's mum did. And in 2010, she was encouraged to participate in what we call our health leadership program. In that program, Bebi studied for 6 months and did a 6-month internship. And so she now educates the community about hygiene, basic aid, and how and who to contact for more advanced health services. She also now continues to deliver critical health education to the 150 households in her community. She couples this education with her small business, which is selling recyclable sanitary pads and other health and hygiene products. I wanted to give you a bit more information about COVID. Now, let's move that down there. And what we've specifically done during COVID. And as Amina said, COVID has devastated communities. One of the things we did was to prevent infection in vulnerable populations. One of the key things was that there was rampant misinformation. And so we used SMS, WhatsApp, comics, posters, voice messages, and in-person meetings to disseminate the real facts about COVID and how to deal with it. Okay, here we go. For those with milder symptoms or exposure to COVID, we distributed food ration kits, sanitary kits, medicine, and as you saw in that picture in India, with all that hustle and bustle, in the developing world, space is a premium. And so it's difficult to isolate. And so we provided, particularly in rural villages, isolation centres. To manage COVID and the mental health issues at home, we provided remote care through telemedicine via a helpline, mobile app, and clinics. And I just want to explain, I'm talking about SMS and telemedicine, so using mobile technology. And when I started working in development, and my previous career, about 25 years, was in the financial markets. And when I left the markets, I moved to India and then Cambodia, and I traveled in a lot of developing countries. And one of the things I was really surprised about was how many poor people had mobile phones. And what it turns out is mobile phones are very cheap. There's cheap Chinese mobile phones. They're affordable even for people living in poverty. And the mobile calls are also very cheap. And so mobile phones are everywhere. And what this means is that most people, even the poor, have a mobile phone. And that's why something like telemedicine works really well. And it's really efficient because we can get to people in remote communities, and it's an inexpensive way of doing it rather than someone jumping on a motorbike and riding out to these communities. We can do it digitally. For people who had worsening COVID symptoms, and we're not a health organisation, But we do have all these branch offices of these microfinance institutions all over the country. And so we use those branch offices and the facilities to set up some basic care and oxygen, but always, sending people to hospital if they needed it. And to expedite the mass vaccinations, which is improving immunity, we collaborated with local governments and organised vaccination camps. And because of our trust in those communities, this really helped mobilise and get many people vaccinated. So what's the way forward now that vaccinations are getting more widespread and people are getting more immunity? One of the things with microfinance is providing capital for restarting those businesses, and the loans have been redesigned to meet the specific needs of clients as they emerged out of the pandemic. Some of them, if they've got a small business, they've consumed all their stock, and so they've got nothing to sell. So we need to kickstart them with that loan so they can buy stock and start selling again. And the pandemic has highlighted the advantage of using technology, call centres and digital finance infrastructure. And because of that widespread mobile phone distribution, that makes it all possible. We also work in stopping human trafficking, particularly child trafficking. And as you can see, the statistics on trafficking are frightening. Unfortunately, the coronavirus has worsened the situation. Targeted villages are more vulnerable, children are out of school, and people are jobless, and incomes have been decimated. And traffickers exploit that poverty and the mindsets that undervalue girls. Because only 1% of children are ever rescued from being trafficked, we focus on prevention. And we do that by working in vulnerable villages and educating people. When people understand what the traffickers are really doing, because they're tricked into thinking that their daughters are going to a better job or married to a caring and person that is going to look after and provide income. They're tricked into it. But once they understand that's what's not happening, then no parent wants to see their daughter end up being trafficked. And so we go into those villages, and by setting up village custodians and educating them, we have these custodians who watched the community and know who to contact in the authorities when they see potential risks. And just to give you an idea of the impact that we've had, we've built a volunteer base over a couple of years of about 4,000 people. We've trained in over 4,600 villages. So basically about one person in each village is trained as this volunteer. And we've distributed 1.2 million local language books and comics, because we also want to get to children. Comics is a way that children like, and it's a strong way to communicate. And we've educated around about 2.5 million people. So thank you so much for listening how Opportunity International are working with generous donors here in Australia so we can implement this work that I've spoken to you about. So I'll hand back over to you, Kelsey.